Picture this. You wake up one morning, turn on the news, and something's wrong. Maybe it's a pipeline shutdown. Maybe it's a port strike. Maybe it's something happening on the other side of the world that nobody thought would matter here. You grab your keys, drive to the nearest grocery store, and the parking lot is already packed at 7 in the morning. You walk inside and the shelves, the ones that are usually stacked floor to ceiling, are half empty. The bread is gone. The bottled water is gone. The canned goods section looks like it's been stripped clean overnight. This isn't a movie scene. This has happened. It happened in 2020. It happened during Hurricane Katrina. It happened during the Texas freeze. It happens somewhere in the world every single year, and every single time, the people caught off guard say the same thing. I didn't think it would happen here. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The supplies that disappear during a crisis don't vanish because they were rare to begin with. They vanish because everyone reaches for them at the exact same moment. And by the time most people realize there's a problem, the window to act has already closed. In this video, we're going to walk you through the essential supplies that quietly disappear first when things go sideways, what they are, why they matter more than most people realize, and exactly how to store and manage them before the rest of the world catches on. No fear-mongering, no extreme survivalist tactics, just practical, grounded steps that any household can take, starting this week. Welcome to Crisis Horizon, where we cut through the noise and give you the information that actually matters. If that sounds like what you've been looking for, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because this is exactly the kind of content we put out every single week. And stay with us until the end of this video, because the final section covers something most preparedness guides completely ignore, and it might be the thing that matters most when a real emergency hits. Let's get into it. Let's start with the most basic question. Why do certain supplies disappear so fast? It's not always because of a genuine shortage. More often, it's because of perception. The moment people believe something might run out, they buy more than they need. That behavior is completely rational on an individual level, but when everyone does it simultaneously, it creates the very shortage they were afraid of. Economists call it a demand shock. Everyone else calls it panic buying. And the items that trigger it first are almost always the same: fuel and food staples. Understanding that pattern is the first step to staying ahead of it, because if you already have what you need before the signal fires, you don't have to join the scramble at all. Let's talk about fuel first, because it tends to be the thing most people think about last. Most households don't think about stored gasoline until they're already in trouble. A storm gets upgraded overnight, or a refinery shuts down, or a geopolitical event sends energy markets into a spiral, and suddenly every gas station within 20 miles has a line around the block. If you're in that line, you've already lost the timing game. But here's what makes this even more frustrating. A lot of people have tried to store gasoline before and given up on it because stored gas goes bad. And they're right. Untreated gasoline begins to degrade within 30 to 60 days. The lighter compounds evaporate. What's left becomes thick and gummy, and that residue can clog carburetors and fuel injectors, especially in small engines, which are exactly the tools you're counting on when the grid goes down. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple, and it costs less than $10. A fuel stabilizer, added at the time of storage, prevents that chemical breakdown and can extend gasoline's usable life to 12 months, and in some formulations up to 3 years. That's the difference between a can of gas that saves you and a can of gas that destroys your engine. The system to build here is straightforward. Keep 2 proper fuel containers, the kind rated for safe storage, with sealed caps and no venting issues. One is designated for your vehicle as a backup reserve. One is for your generator or any other gas-powered equipment you rely on. Add stabilizer immediately when you fill them. Store them in a cool, ventilated space away from any heat source or open flame. Rotate the fuel annually. Pour the old supply into your car's tank and refill fresh. That's it. With that system in place, you have a buffer that most of your neighbors simply don't have. Now let's move to food, because if fuel is the thing most people think about last, food storage is the thing most people think about wrong.
When people imagine emergency food supplies, they often picture expensive freeze-dried meals or elaborate canned goods systems. The reality is far more humble and far more practical. The single best long-term food you can store costs almost nothing and is probably already sitting in your pantry right now. White rice. Not brown rice, and the distinction matters. Brown rice retains its outer bran layer, which contains natural oils. Those oils go rancid within 6 to 12 months. White rice, on the other hand, has had those oils removed in processing. When sealed in airtight containers with oxygen absorbers, white rice can remain fully edible for up to 30 years. That is no typo. 30 years of viable, calorie-dense food from something you can buy in bulk for under $1 a pound. One dry cup of white rice yields approximately 600 calories when cooked.
During a crisis, when physical activity increases and stress is running high, your body's caloric demands go up, and rice meets that demand without requiring refrigeration, special preparation, or cooking skill beyond boiling water. What makes rice especially powerful in an emergency context is its role as a base. It absorbs flavors, stretches other ingredients, and can transform nearly anything, a can of beans, a pouch of tuna, some dried spices, into a real filling meal. It's not just a food, it's a platform. But rice alone isn't a complete nutritional strategy, and that brings us to the most underrated calorie source in any emergency pantry: cooking oil. Gram for gram, fat contains more than twice the calories of carbohydrates or protein. A single tablespoon of oil delivers roughly 120 calories. That density is critical when you're trying to maintain energy, body temperature, and mental focus under stress. What's less obvious is the physiological role fat plays beyond raw calories. Your body needs dietary fat to absorb vitamins A, D, E, and K, all of which become harder to source in an emergency diet heavy in grains and canned goods. Store at least 2 types of oil: vegetable oil for high heat cooking, olive oil or coconut oil for lower heat applications and longer shelf life. Keep them in a cool, dark location, away from direct sunlight, which accelerates oxidation, and rotate them into your regular cooking before they expire. The goal is a living supply, not a static one. Now, calories and carbohydrates can sustain life, but they can't sustain performance. That's where protein comes in, and it's where most people's emergency food plans have a critical gap. Without adequate protein, your body begins to break down muscle tissue for fuel within days. Your immune function declines. Your cognitive performance drops. Your ability to manage the physical and emotional demands of a crisis situation diminishes in ways that are hard to recover from quickly. Canned proteins solve this problem cleanly. Tuna, chicken, salmon, sardines, all of these are shelf-stable, require no refrigeration, need no cooking if necessary, and deliver complete proteins with meaningful caloric content. Sardines in particular are exceptional, high in protein, rich in omega-3 fatty acids, and among the most sustainable and affordable options available. When building your canned protein supply, 2 principles matter. First, variety. A single type of protein eaten repeatedly creates what emergency responders call food fatigue, a psychological response to monotonous eating that reduces appetite, impacts morale, and makes people skip meals even when they're hungry. Rotating between different proteins keeps meals tolerable and nutrition consistent. Second, rotation. Use and replace your supply continuously so nothing expires unnoticed. First in, first out. The same system grocery stores use, scaled to your household. Everything we've covered so far gives you energy, fuel, and calories, but none of it matters if you can't stay healthy enough to use it. This next layer is the one most households are most dangerously unprepared for, and it's the layer that tends to become critical fastest when a disruption stretches beyond a day or two. Let's start with medications, because the vulnerability here is one most people don't fully appreciate until it's personal. The pharmaceutical supply chain is far more fragile than most people realize. A significant portion of the active ingredients in everyday medications, including basic items like ibuprofen and certain antihistamines, are manufactured overseas, primarily in a small number of facilities.
When those supply chains experience disruption, even something as routine as a cold medicine can become genuinely difficult to find. This isn't speculation. During recent global disruptions, common medications vanished from pharmacy shelves for weeks. The over-the-counter medications worth maintaining a personal supply of fall into 5 categories. Pain and fever relief, your standard ibuprofen and acetaminophen, which cover a wide range of common ailments. Antihistamines for allergic reactions, which can escalate quickly without management. Cold and flu treatments because respiratory illnesses don't pause for emergencies, antidiarrheals because gastrointestinal illness becomes especially dangerous when access to clean water or medical care is limited, and electrolyte powders, which are critical for rehydration during illness, physical exertion, or extreme heat. Organize these into a clearly labeled kit and check expiration dates twice a year. The same dates you change your smoke detector batteries works well as a reminder. Include a thermometer, basic first aid items, and if your household has members with prescription needs, speak with your physician now about maintaining a short emergency reserve. Don't wait until refill timing becomes a problem during a crisis. On the subject of first aid, most households have a tin of expired bandages somewhere in a bathroom cabinet and consider that preparation. It is not. A real first aid kit is a different thing entirely. A functional kit contains wound closure strips for lacerations that don't require stitches but need proper closure, sterile gauze pads in multiple sizes, an antiseptic solution, nitrile gloves, multiple pairs because contamination is a real concern, an elastic bandage for sprains and compression needs, a tourniquet properly stored and never used for practice, burn dressings, scissors and medical tape, a CPR face shield, a basic splint for immobilizing injuries until proper care is available, and critically, a physical first aid manual, because in a high-stress situation, your memory for procedure becomes unreliable. The investment cost for a complete kit is modest, but the more valuable
A basic first aid course, offered free or at low cost through community organizations and the Red Cross in many areas, gives you the confidence and competence to actually use what you've stored. No supply compensates for the ability to act correctly when something goes wrong. Now let's address power, because in a grid-down situation, even the best food and medical stockpile becomes harder to access without light, communication, and the ability to run essential devices. Batteries are, on the surface, the most obvious item on this list, but most households are under-equipped in ways that only become apparent during a prolonged outage. The first problem is coverage, knowing what battery sizes your critical devices actually require. AA and AAA cover the majority of flashlights, radios, and basic electronics, but medical devices, certain lanterns, and backup communication equipment may require CR123A, D-cell, or 9-volt batteries that people rarely stock. The second problem is duration. Disposable batteries deplete, and during a multi-day outage, store shelves empty of batteries within hours. The solution here is rechargeable batteries paired with a compact solar charging panel. The upfront cost is higher than a pack of disposables, but the functional outcome is categorically different. As long as sunlight is available, your devices remain operational indefinitely. For a household with children, for someone with a medical device that requires consistent power, or for anyone who needs reliable communication during an extended event, this isn't optional, it's essential. Propane deserves special attention as a backup fuel because it has an advantage over gasoline and diesel that most people don't know about. It doesn't degrade. Gasoline breaks down within weeks without stabilizer. Propane, stored in sealed cylinders, remains stable for 5 years or more with no treatment required. It burns cleanly, produces consistent heat, and is compatible with a wide range of portable equipment: camp stoves for cooking, indoor-safe propane heaters for warmth during winter outages, and propane lanterns for reliable light. The practical strategy is to maintain 2 to 3 standard cylinders in rotation, stored upright in a ventilated space away from heat sources and direct sunlight. Pair them with a quality camp stove, an indoor-rated propane heater, and a propane lantern, and you have a complete grid-independent energy system that covers cooking, heat, and light simultaneously. And then there is water, the supply that demands the most attention because its absence becomes life-threatening faster than anything else on this list. 3 days, that's the hard biological ceiling for most people without water intake under normal conditions. Under physical stress, heat, or illness, that window narrows further.
The challenge with water preparation is that it's easy to underestimate the quantity needed and to overestimate the reliability of municipal supply. Municipal water systems depend on functioning electrical pumps, chemical treatment processes, and intact infrastructure. All three of those can fail simultaneously during a major event, and when they do, the pressure that keeps water flowing in your pipes can disappear within hours. Bottled water on store shelves is gone within the first wave of buying, often before most people have processed that there's a problem. The layered approach is the only reliable one. Start with stored water, enough bottled supply for immediate, no preparation required access for your household for at least 72 hours. Then extend that with a quality water filtration system, specifically a filter rated to handle biological contamination, meaning bacteria, protozoa, and ideally viruses. Filters with this capability can process river water, rainwater, and stored water from non-sterile containers into safe drinking water. Many quality portable filters can handle hundreds to thousands of gallons before the filter element needs replacement. Combined, these two layers give you both immediate access and indefinite supply as long as any water source is accessible. By now you have fuel, food, water, health supplies, and power covered. But here's where most preparedness plans quietly fall apart, and it's usually not because of the big, obvious items. It's because of small skill gaps and overlooked tools that leave expensive preparations functionally useless. Let's talk about flour, because it represents something broader than just an ingredient. During prolonged disruptions, convenience foods and processed goods vanish first. What tends to remain, because most people don't know what to do with it, are raw ingredients. Flour is the most powerful of these, because combined with water, a fat source, and heat, flour can become bread, flatbread, tortillas, pancakes, dumplings, and a dozen other forms that transform a limited pantry into something that actually sustains you emotionally as well as physically. Stored properly in an airtight container in a cool, dry location, all-purpose flour has a shelf life of 1 to 2 years. It won't last as long as rice, but it doesn't have to. The goal is rotation, not indefinite storage. Stock alongside it a small supply of baking powder, salt, sugar, and dried yeast. Learn one flatbread recipe right now before you need it. A simple flour, water, salt, and oil flatbread cooked in a dry pan requires no oven, no electricity, no special equipment. It takes minutes, and the ability to make fresh bread from basic ingredients is one of the most quietly important skills you can have when your options are limited. And then, and this sounds almost too basic to mention, but it matters more than people expect, the manual can opener. Most people have one somewhere. Not everyone knows where it is. Some households only have.
During a power outage, with a pantry full of canned goods and no way to open them, that irony is not amusing. Keep 2 manual can openers, one in the primary kitchen drawer, one in your emergency kit. Choose a quality model with a firm grip and durable cutting wheel, and test it periodically. A broken can opener at a critical moment is a genuine problem that costs nothing to prevent. Now let's talk about information, because in a fast-moving emergency, access to accurate, real-time information may be the single most important resource you have. Cell networks fail under the same conditions that cause most other infrastructure to fail, and often more quickly because they depend on both power and signal bandwidth that gets overwhelmed when large numbers of people attempt simultaneous calls and data use. During the most serious emergencies, the periods when you most need to know what's happening, your smartphone may be useless for hours or days at a time. A hand crank or battery-powered AM, FM, NOAA weather radio solves this. NOAA Weather Radio broadcasts continuous, automated updates on weather conditions, emergency alerts, and evacuation orders, independent of the internet, independent of cell service, and independent of the power grid. Many units also include a hand crank charging function, a solar panel, and a USB output for charging other devices, making them genuinely multi-purpose. The cost is typically between $30 and $60. The value during an actual emergency is difficult to overstate. Beyond information, one of the most underappreciated aspects of emergency preparedness is the ability to contain damage quickly.
Not every crisis is about supply shortages. Sometimes it's a storm that breaks a window, a pipe that bursts in freezing temperatures, a roof that takes damage overnight. In those moments, the ability to seal, patch, and stabilize a situation temporarily to buy time before proper repairs are possible can prevent a manageable problem from becoming a catastrophic one. Duct tape and heavy-duty plastic sheeting are the tools for that job. Plastic sheeting can cover broken windows, seal water-damaged areas, protect stored supplies from the elements, and create improvised barriers. Duct tape can secure virtually anything temporarily, seal gaps in walls or doors, and hold emergency repairs in place long enough to matter. Together, they cost very little, store compactly, and have applications far beyond emergency use. Keep a roll of each in your emergency supplies and replace them before they dry out or lose adhesion. Now let's close with two items that operate on a longer horizon and one that operates on the most immediate financial level. Seeds might seem out of place on a list otherwise focused on supplies you can deploy within days, but the logic of including them here is important to understand. The food vulnerabilities that create short-term supply disruptions, rising input costs, climate pressures on harvests, trade barriers, fertilizer supply constraints, don't resolve quickly. They tend to worsen gradually, and their effects compound over seasons. A garden doesn't help you in the first week of a crisis, but a garden started this spring could meaningfully offset food costs and supply uncertainty by this fall, and every season thereafter. The key distinction to make when selecting seeds is between hybrid seeds, which are engineered for single-season performance and may not produce viable seeds for replanting, and open-pollinated or heirloom varieties, which can be saved at the end of each season and replanted the following year. That capacity to save and replant is what transforms a one-time purchase into a potentially permanent food source. Grow what your household actually eats. Start small and build knowledge season by season. The learning curve is real, but it's far more manageable when you're doing it by choice than when you're forced to by circumstance. And finally, physical cash. This may be the most overlooked item on this entire list, and it's the one that tends to cause the most immediate practical problems when people haven't thought about it in advance. Modern payment infrastructure, card readers, mobile payments, bank transfers, ATMs, runs on power, internet connectivity, and secure network communications. All of those dependencies can fail simultaneously during a major disruption. When they do, a household with no physical cash on hand is functionally unable to purchase anything, regardless of what's in their bank account. The solution is simple, but requires a small, deliberate decision. Keep a cash reserve at home. Not a significant sum, not your savings, a practical buffer. Prioritize low denominations, 1s, 5s, 10s, and 20s, because making change during a disruption is often impossible, and large bills may not be accepted for small purchases. Store it securely but accessibly in at least 2 separate locations, home and vehicle, or go bag, so that a single loss doesn't wipe out your buffer. Replenish it periodically. It doesn't expire, it doesn't require maintenance, and it works when nothing else does. Here's what all of this comes down to. Emergencies are not announced. The window to act is almost always before the crisis becomes visible, because once it's visible, everyone acts at once, and the supplies, the fuel, the medications, the cash, all disappear in hours. The households that navigate disruptions with the least stress are not wealthier or more resourceful than their neighbors. They simply acted earlier. What we've walked through today isn't an extreme lifestyle change. It doesn't require a bunker or a radical shift in how you live. It's a layered set of practical decisions that can be worked into your existing routine, a little at a time, consistently, until your household has genuine resilience across fuel, food, water, health, power, tools, information.
Start this week with one item. Add something with every grocery run. Learn one skill before you need it. Rotate your supplies before they expire. Teach the people in your household where things are and how to use them. That's it. That's the whole system. The world is not getting simpler, and disruptions are not becoming less frequent. But with the right preparation in place, they become manageable challenges instead of crises. And there is a real, lasting peace of mind that comes from knowing your household is ready.
not because you're afraid of what's coming, but because you've already done the work. This is Crisis Horizon. If this video gave you something useful, please like it and share it with someone who needs it. It genuinely helps us reach more people with this kind of content. Subscribe for new videos every week and leave a comment below telling us which supply you're starting with first. We'll see you in the next one.